Okay, this is a screencast on how to graph all the data that we acquired in the Harness the Wind experiment. What you're going to end up with is a sheet or a page that looks like this, with this data table that you see in front of you. Then it has several questions at the bottom that you'll need to answer using the data table and the graph that you make. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, initially, you're going to need to make a data table that looks like this. Essentially, you're going to have all the different teams from each class and then the sections along the top. And this data will be on the board, and you'll just need to put it into the spreadsheet in front of you. But before you start doing that, you'll need to set it up like this: 7 teams and 5 sections. Make sure you label each one of your dependent variables with power and put in milliwatts in parentheses. Once you have all that data put into it, it's going to look something like this. This one's a little different because this is the one from last year, and this is the data from last year's students. So let's go about how you're going to get all of this information. First, we'll get rid of that. So it asks which class had the highest average power output. Well, in order to calculate that, you could add all of this section's powers output up and then divide it by 7. And that would take a while, but we're going to use the spreadsheet to help us do that. And the way that you're going to do that is you pick on the cell that you want it to average, get the average in. You come over to the functions button. We're going to select average. It'll do the function for average there. You then select the cells that you want it to average. It's going to average cells C4 through C10, hit return, and there is the power in milliwatts for section 1. Now, you could do the same thing for each one of them like this, or you could take this little deal, click on the cell, make the little plus sign, drag it across, and the computer knows to take the average of each one of these cells. So by looking at this data, which class had the highest average power output? It would have been section 4 with 710 milliwatts of power. Now, what was the average power for the entire 7th grade? Well, we can have the spreadsheet do that for us too. You, once again, go to your functions button. We want to find the average, but this time we want to find the average of all of the teams in all of the sections. So we highlight all of those. It puts all those cells in there for us. We hit enter, and it gives us the average, which is 601.26. And that's fine just to leave that answer in the cell off to the right. These two, it says if all the turbines were going at once, what would be the power output in milliwatts? Excuse me. Well, what that's saying is we need to know the total power output of everybody if we could get all of them going at once. In this case, it'd be 35 different turbines going at one time. So we're going to click on the cell where we want the answer. So we want the sum this time, addition. Hit the sum of button, and once again, select the cells we want it to add up, and we get 21,044.1 milliwatts. The next question, it says, if all the turbines were going at once, what would be the power output in watts? Well, a watt is, if you go up the stair steps for the conversions, it's 1,000 times bigger than a milliwatt. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to take this number and divide it by 1,000. Well, obviously, we can do that by just moving the decimal over 3 places, but might as well show you how to do this on a spreadsheet. We get to the cell we want. To tell it to do a calculation, you have to hit the equal sign. So now it's going to calculate, and we want it to take this number, which is in cell G17, and we want to divide it by 1,000 because there's 1,000 milliwatts in a watt. We hit enter, and it gives us our answer of 21.0441 watts. Now, the next thing we're going to go to is this energy.gov link. It says click on the link in the cell to the left and find a device that you could power using all of your turbines. So we're dealing with 21 watts. So when you click on this cell and go to this link, you're going to need to find an appliance that is going to give us that amount, that uses that amount of power. Notice I have it set up on a refrigerator. And the refrigerator uses 225 watts. That is too much. Maybe a laser printer, it uses 255 watts. A portable spa uses 4,350 watts. An iron, so it was 1,000 watts. So you just need to go through and find something that's going to use approximately 20 watts. All right. Next, and then when you find that, you're just going to type it in this cell right here. Now, using the same link, calculate how much it will cost to run your refrigerator for 1 year. So once again, go back to the energy link, click on refrigerator, and put in the parameters and find out how much it's going to cost to do that. And then finally, you're going to create a bar graph that shows the average power output for each class. And then please move it to your own sheet. Well, in order to do this, all right, we're going to need to select the proper data to do this. And since we want the average power output, this is our average power of each class. This is what we're going to want to select in order to make a bar graph of this data. We're not selecting this because this is really the raw data and it's not the average. So as we go through here, we're now going to click on the Insert Chart button. When we do that, it's going to come up with a pretty good data table that we need for this. Graph that we need for this. And you can see that it has the independent variable, which is the sections on the x-axis, and the dependent variable, which is the milliwatts on the y-axis. And we want to use a bar graph, so that's good. We're going to go to customization. You'll need to give it a title, the effect of the IV on the DV. The legend, you'll want to click on and hit none, remove that legend because we don't need one. And then as you pan down, we'll need to label the X and Y axis. So here, horizontal axis, we'll need to put down, label that properly. Then after you've done that, switch to the vertical axis and put in the proper label for it. Do not forget to put the units in parentheses. That's an important thing to remember. After you've done all of that, you can, if you like, change the grid lines or the color aspect, the way it looks. That's fine. Then you'll need to insert it and move it to its own sheet. Once again, how do you do that? Once you've hit insert and you've labeled everything, you click on this little button here, you hit move to own sheet, and your graph will be right there. Then you'll just need to turn this sheet in electronically, and you are finished with your assignment.